Hello, and welcome to the Daily View. Well, today we're going to begin with the innermost planet, and we're going to start with Mercury. Mercury is closest to the Sun. There's all kinds of mythology about the relationship between Mercury and the Sun. That Mercury is, in the masculine sense, the eldest son, the one that carries its father's light. And Mercury traditionally has been, as it is in the Mercury myth itself, a messenger of the gods. And it's not so much that Mercury brings a message from the gods as Mercury brings the capacity to move messages. In other words, communication. And everything about the Mercury archetype, whether that is Mercury or Prometheus or Loki or any of these kinds of gods, that basically what they represent is an expansion of human consciousness, and mostly that expansion of human consciousness through forms of communication. By the way, that communication doesn't have to be simply words. Like Hermes, it can be music as well. In other words, this is an archetype of the need within oneself to communicate. And it is the imprinting capacity to communicate. Now, of course, when we're dealing with human design, we are dealing with not a single Mercury. When you're looking at your chart, you're looking at a binary, always the binary. On one side, you have the conscious Mercury. And it's very important for you just to notice, just very simply, where is that Mercury of yours, that conscious Mercury, the one that you have conscious access to, the one that you think of as you. It is this Mercury in this particular position that gives you an insight into what truly you need to communicate in this life, what you need to get across in this life, what you need to reach out and deliver to the other as a message in this life. But it's more than just the phenomena of what our personality wants to communicate. Of course, there's also what our form wants to communicate. And it is one of the deeper insights into the operation of the unconscious, is to really see what our unconscious wants to communicate. So often we find ourselves in situations where, we are actually communicating to someone what, in fact, we don't even know why we're telling them what we're telling them. We don't know where that's coming from. But remember that our design also is imprinted with the capacity to communicate. That need to communicate and the need of that essence, wherever that Mercury happens to be, that design Mercury. Look very carefully at your design Mercury. It's a deep insight into why there seems to be this consistent theme in you that needs to be expressed, while at the same time your personality doesn't know why. Doesn't really understand nor accept why that seems to be a theme that you're trying to get across. And it's one of the things to realize about looking at your design Mercury is that you can begin to see within yourself that so much of what we call our life is the deep limitation of only being identified with our personalities. It is the whole life. It is the whole life that has a capacity to communicate. And that capacity to communicate is a binary, but it's a binary that when it operates correctly, the whole that's greater than the sum of the parts is the form itself, the totality itself, being able to communicate properly. What's so interesting about looking at the personality and the design Mercury in your chart is to begin to see that there is a synthesis between those juxtaposed elements. In other words, that both the expression that is demanded within the unconscious and the obvious need to communicate the theme that is present in the conscious, that only when they're operating correctly will a larger theme be communicated. This is the mystical part of what life is. This is how we get to a place of, experiencing our purpose. Our purpose is not experienced by being limited to one side of the equation or the other. This is not about this and that. The whole key in human design in operating correctly as yourself is that there is an intrinsic harmony between the this and that is you. In other words, between the personality and the design. That it operates correctly as a totality. And when it's operating correctly as a totality, what in essence then can be communicated is the transcendent synthetic communication that's rooted in both the need of the design Mercury and the need of the personality Mercury to communicate its specific activated themes.